Israel speaking. Get to the nearest safe house and wait until dawn. Good night, and good luck.
I'm Tate.
I'm Joey.
And we are NoteWorth. We play games and then we rate and review them. We don't rate on a scale of 1 to 10. We rate it on what we think it should be: baller, basic, or bust.
Either it's awesome and it's worth playing, or it's okay, or it's absolutely not worth playing at all.
There are 3 things you need to know about us. 1, we complete games all the way through.
2, when we review games, we split them up into 2 categories, narrative and gameplay. Narrative meaning story, plot, characterization, story being what, plot being why. If a video game has a narrative, then the narrative is on the chopping block as well.
And 3, we are completely 100% honest. In this video, we're going to review our first game we bought for the Xbox One and the first game we played, Dying Light.
Let's do this.
Yeah! Developed by Techland and published by Warner Brothers Interactive Entertainment, Dying Light is an open-world first-person shooter game. You play as an agent named Kyle Crane who is contracted by the organization called the Global Relief Effort, or the GRE, to locate a particular file of great importance within the quarantine city of Haran in the midst of a zombie outbreak. As soon as you are dropped into the city, you are bitten by a zombie and rescued by survivors called Runners. After waking up in the tower, the headquarters for a group of survivors organized and trained by a man named Brecken, you learn that they saved your life by injecting you with an antiviral serum called Antizin that prevents you from transforming into one of the undead.
Joining one of many who rely upon Antizin to survive, you immediately realize and understand the war Brecken and his survivors are fighting over territory and Antizin, which is randomly provided by the government via airdrops, with another group of survivors led by a man named Rice. While attempting to infiltrate Haran for the GRE and survive as one of the infected, you must also face the zombies and monsters that vary in intensity and aggression depending on the day cycle and night cycle. You evolve into a physically powerful player enhanced by the open world characteristic of the game and the parkour element that helps you turn each and every inch of Haran into your personal playground and battleground as you struggle with doing the job you were hired to do or rising up in order to fight oppression, corruption, and deceit to avenge your friends and ultimately save yourself and the world. In many ways, Dying Light stands alone. It's a one-of-a-kind game. It is the only first-person shooter game that has a narrative from start to finish that is not within the Resident Evil franchise that we've ever played.
And it also takes like other aspects creatively from other games like the open world, and you have a parkour aspect as well, and it blends it into the gameplay that works.
The narrative in Dying Light is strong in many ways. First of all, you have a really strong protagonist, Kyle Crane, who is actually voiced by Roger Craig Smith.
One day I'm gonna do this and end up landing on a bag of rusty knives, I just know it.
We're huge fans of Roger Craig Smith, and I was super excited when I found out he was actually voicing Kyle Crane. But in general, Kyle Crane is a very likable protagonist. He's being thrown into this world. He's not meant to really care. He's been hired to retrieve a file, and that's it. And so throughout the game, he kind of changes and feels become real.
Anyone who can hear me, please listen. My name is Kyle Crane, and I'm sending this message from inside the Haran quarantine. Colonel Tanner and the Ministry of Defense have lied to you. There are still survivors inside the walls. They plan to firebomb Haran.
He is also incredibly powerful in that he has a reaction to the GRE.
If Rise wants one girl, then give her to him.
What do you mean, was that it? I'm not a human trafficker.
He uncovers a lot of things about the GRE, and it causes him to kind of question what he's doing there and who he's working for. That's something that's missing in a lot of games. But I feel like that showcases the protagonist's ability to have ethics and morale. I feel like Crane does that beautifully throughout the game. They've created a multifaceted protagonist that you're playing, one that's very believable and very relatable.
As a gamer, like, I want to be a little emotionally invested.
It's just hard when you don't have control of the character himself or herself, and you can't control the inner dialogue. But with Crane, he gets angry, he gets upset. There's a desperation that he goes through, that there are people in danger, we're doing this, but we should be doing this too. And so he's kind of torn, he's splintered after he starts working with Brecken, seeing what else going on in Haran. You have a handful of side characters that you meet throughout the game. They are on the good side and the bad side, and they're all very interesting. The ones on Brecken's side, Brecken, first of all, is super likable. He is the one heading, you know, the good side of I guess, the war over territory in Anazin. His backstory is really interesting. He's a parkour instructor. By chance, he just becomes the leader of this group of survivors, and he teaches them skills that they are able to use, obviously, throughout the game to survive. So I really like his backstory, even though you really don't learn too much more about him other than he was a parkour instructor, but I really liked him. I also like the fact that Raheem and Jade are siblings. I think that complicates things quite a bit.
He's the younger brother too. He wants to accomplish something great.
He definitely has cabin fever, which I feel like is very realistic, and so I really like that they portray that aspect of that type of world and that type of setup.
All I can do is watch, sit on my ass, and watch everything happen and do nothing.
Then you have Jade, who is an incredibly strong female character. She is a world champion kickboxer. She is very aggressive.
She's a badass, really.
She's very baller and badass. I really liked her. I kind of wished initially that there had been a love story, but honestly I kind of feel like the way she was done was perfectly fine, and I really like it in retrospect that they didn't do that, because that would have been very stereotypical in many ways. So you have like this team of really good side characters on Brecken's end that Crane immediately is introduced to in the beginning of the game. Just like any good story, whether it's a novel, in a movie, or in a video game, with a good protagonist, there should be a solid antagonist. And I feel like in this game, Rice is a solid antagonist.
He's sadistic.
He is malicious, he is evil, and you are constantly reminded that not only are you battling the zombies and the monsters and the fact that you are infected and you're trying to get Anazin, and you're also trying to do what you're hired to do by the GRE, but you're also combating against Rice and his men, evil bandits.
Murderers, thieves, everything.
They're like thugs. But Rice in general, he's a great antagonist in that a lot of the things that he does, it really just showcases how selfish he is and just how he views humanity as entertainment and not as human beings that are trying to survive. He uses the Anazin to barter and trade for things, and then he never follows through. And
he takes full advantage of the chaos going within Haran to work his way up to power.
I'm not sure what is worse, having an awful protagonist or having an awful antagonist. And when you have a game where both of them are bad, it's really annoying. But this game definitely did not suffer from that at all, and I really enjoyed all of the characters. Within the narrative, there's a clear-cut good versus evil dynamic. That's very old school. You see that in so many stories since the beginning of literature. And so I really like that they utilize it. It's very clear who's good, who's bad, and what you're doing when you're helping these people or when you're interacting with the bad people and doing things like mission-wise for Rice, because you have to.
And you kind of feel like a douche doing it, but I mean, you have to progress the story and to do all this for...
And I really like that about Crane. I feel like throughout the game, he's always saying that. When he's working with Rice...
He says he feels like shit for doing this because, he's putting pressure on these people to do bad things for Rice.
We did read that Dan Jolly, who has written for DC Comic, was brought on to the writing team to handle this narrative. So I feel like it shouldn't be a surprise to anybody that it's going to be of a higher caliber narrative. And that being said, a good narrative has characters that you care about, and I feel like because of that, when it comes to the emotions in this game, the emotions are incredibly effective. There is a loss when characters are killed.
I had to kill him. It was too late. He turned. I had no choice, I swear.
There's a void when they're gone, and it kind of makes you sad. And I think that makes the game worth playing. It makes you feel like you're invested in the narrative itself, and I feel like they did a really good job with that.
When you have a character die off or whatever, you have Brecken, who is emotional. You see his emotion and his anger, and then you also see Kyle Crane, and you see his anger and frustration with it, and and then it works. Like, that is a key aspect to having a good game, is that you're emotionally involved in it and you feel like the character feels, like you have a strong emotion to play.
I feel like Dying Light in general focuses a lot on what would be realistic. You could argue it either way, but I firmly believe that when you're dropped into a situation like this, you don't care about these people initially and you don't know them, and you do get to know them, it's near impossible not to bond with them. And so I think that that's another reason why there's such a loss and why it's so dramatic when characters die that you really care about. That was very successful in this game. The emotions are so strong that there is no question as to why you would continue to do anything that you are doing in the narrative to progress through the game.
Vengeance is a good motivator to get you to play.
There are a lot of reviews, obviously, about this game already. Some of the reviews attack a few things that I feel are a bit unfair. Most of them focus on gameplay, but the one major issue that people supposedly have with this game is that there's a lack of characterization, and I do not agree with that whatsoever, and that the protagonist is incredibly strong. We have actually played a game recently where the protagonist was ridiculously boring, and that was infuriating, and you do not have a problem with that in this game, so I do not agree with that. I feel like the side characters have backstory, and they've been developed quite a bit. I feel like the one area that they're talking about as far as like developing the side characters, I don't really see any kind of issue with that. You learn a lot from other characters about side characters, so you are kind of developing this mental journal where you're learning about these characters and constantly figuring out who they are or who they were before the outbreak and how they've kind of utilized those skills and brought them to the forefront in the midst of this turmoil. There are only a few issues that I have with the narrative in Dying Light. I feel like they're very small, and honestly, when you play a game, this is exactly how it should be. First of all, I kind of feel like they could have benefited a little bit with a branching storyline. And the only reason I say that is because Crane is such a powerful protagonist, maybe giving him the option or trusting the player enough to make decisions, at least make one decision.
To choose who to save, like if you had an option of a character to save and like you save one and sacrifice the other or something like that, a little bit more, intensity to the game.
And I feel like they really could have done that with the syringe of that Crane pockets near the beginning of the game. He's told to destroy it by the GRE, and he does, but he does take one of them. I've actually read up quite a bit about this issue because we couldn't figure out what he did with it. I looked it up, and a lot of people said, well, we figured that he lost it when Rice confiscated all of his weapons.
He captures him and makes him fight in an arena.
He also takes the syringe, but that's never addressed, and you also get all of your weapons back. So I don't know if Rice just in turn pocketed the syringe as well, but that was never addressed. If I can let it slide, it kind of popped up in my mind after playing the game. Crane could have chosen to save Raheem later on. Other than that, I really feel like the game not having a branching storyline was fine. It could have been a better way for them to truly hit the nail on the head as far as like immersing the player into the game. I feel like maybe people aren't really clearly addressing the issue with the side characters or the lack of characterization because again, I really don't feel like they were too underdeveloped. But I feel like Crane probably should have had a little more interaction with the side characters to build his partnership or his relationships up with them. But at the same time, I was just as distraught when all of the characters that die in the game, we're not really gonna like talk about that because we don't want to spoil it for you, but the characters that die in the game, it was such a, I was really upset. And once they're gone, I felt anyway, kind of like, well, I have nothing to live for. I have no one to play with. My friends are all gone. I'm in the sandbox by myself. Because of that, they didn't fail in that aspect at all. They probably could have built Brecken up just a little bit more. He's incredibly likable. He's Crane's support and vice versa, but I kind of feel like when you reach a certain point in the game, he kind of disappears.
As the game progresses, you kind of deal with more with Jade than you do with Brecken.
And then when you go to Old Town, it's Troy. They actually did a really good job introducing her earlier on in the game. That way, her name wasn't a total surprise.
Troy's the leader of basically the same thing as Brecken in a different part of the map. They could have had you interact a little bit more with Brecken, maybe do a few more missions with him or cutscenes with him.
A little more dialogue. The scenes that were heavy in dialogue or interactions between Crane and the other characters were incredibly strong. They were very minimalistic or economic with the interaction.
The gameplay for Dying Light is really interesting because it's a new IP and it's not anything that anybody has ever done before. It's combining like a parkour element into a zombie game and it works really well. There is a learning curve. We both played it. They set you up in a safe area where there's no zombies to introduce you to the parkour elements and to get you kind of used to jumping and looking at a ledge or looking at a windowsill to climb up to get to the ledge. And that's really cool because every aspect of the map of Haran, it's your entire playground.
Once you get used to the parkour style of the game, all of the controls and stuff, this game is fun to play.
It really is.
Narrative aside, it's fun to play.
Most zombie games you're just fighting on street level, but with this one you're fighting on rooftops, on ledges. Zombies will come and chase you on top of the ledge. You're using different elements, an explosive barrel or traps to use against the zombies, so it's really cool. I really enjoyed it.
If you're on the roof of a building and it's like a really tall building, you can watch a certain type of zombie.
Virals, yeah.
The virals, you can watch them crawl up like spiders. I mean, they will come after you, and it's funny. And you can actually kind of watch it on your mini map and kind of anticipate them coming towards you, but they will track you down.
Oh yeah, they'll hunt you. They will hunt you,
and they will kick your ass.
And that's the cool thing about this game too, like there's not just the regular shambling zombies, there's like the virals, there's, I think they call them toads that spit like acid, corrosive thing at you.
I mean, it is kind of like Resident Evil. Resident Evil has,
there's more than one type.
They've evolved to where there are different types of monsters.
Right.
But I feel like this game really does a good job with handling those and making them incredibly useful. Everything is useful in this environment. And the monsters, some of them you have to harvest some of their organs or retrieve something from them to make something else. So everything is completely necessary in this game.
And there's a strategy to it too. If there's a huge destroyer, a big bulking guy, well, how am I going to fight this guy? Because there's tons of other zombies around him. You got to figure out how to do that, and you look and see, oh, there's a trap I can use.
This game makes you incredibly independent.
Yeah.
I feel like a lot of the elements of some video games we've played allows you to be a little bit lazy, and I feel like in this particular game, it's all on you. The decisions you make, the strategies that you decide to go with, as far as like getting into a building, getting around an area, what to use to get rid of them.
Yeah.
It's incredibly flexible.
Yeah, especially the parkour aspect, because you have to judge how do I get from point A to point B, and there's hundreds of ways you can get there. It's how you want to plan that movement you want to get to, and that's really fun.
This game really gives a whole new meaning to open world, because it really is open world, and you have so much freedom as a player. I don't know how many times we've played games before, because you're directed towards an area, you can climb up something and get there. And then in another alley, you can't, because you're not supposed to go there. But in this game, you can really get anywhere, and with the exception of a few doors, you are free as a player.
And it's cool, even later on they add, if you upgrade the skill in the skill tree, you can have a grappling hook, and that makes it a lot easier too, but it also makes it more challenging in a way, because you can get to a certain spot quickly, but your grappling hook takes a while to recharge, so then you have to climb. They add to the fun of parkour with a grappling hook.
The grappling hook is awesome. It's one of those things that whatever you do in the game, if you can try to get the grappling hook early on, that's what you need
definitely
to do.
try to do that,
Because the first time he played it, he didn't get the grappling hook until he went to the second map. When I went back and played it, I was kind of screwing around in the slums and
just basically trying to get
and
XP
looting.
level
I was
up.
looting a lot, and I was trying to level up and everything, and I got the grappling hook pretty quick. Well, as far as like maps are concerned, I got it in the first map. It was incredibly helpful.
And this game was a little odd at first. I went in thinking it would be a shooting zombie game. You use a lot of melee combat. It took a little bit of a while for me to get used to. As you progress, you learn how to upgrade those weapons, and you get better weapons like a machete or her favorite katana.
The katana.
And you get other things that you can use and that have a whole lot more damage. The stamina as well, each swing takes a part of your stamina. At first, I'm not a big fan of that, but I am in Dying Light because it's realistic. You're not going to sit there and swing a crowbar all day and not be tired. It's realistic in that fact.
I think a lot of that places a lot of responsibility on you as the player to figure out, well, is it worth doing that?
Right.
Am I able to do that? Am I going to be tired? Because you will be. I was actually complaining about the melee weapons up front. When he played it first, I was not into the melee weapons. I wanted guns, but they hold you accountable because
they draw attention, and on your minimap you can see every time you shoot there's a little sound effect, and you see that it's drawing the attention of zombies around you.
And it probably would in real life.
Exactly. You can carry enough ammo for a fight, but you also have to think, do I want to use a gun to draw virals? And it makes you think and plan, and honestly, I enjoyed using the edged weapons because after a while you will have to repair them and they will eventually break.
The game developers do a good job with supplying you with weapons
oh gosh,
all throughout the game. You are never in a position where you don't have a weapon.
And that was part of the fun too. I would see a weapon that I have and I mod it out and it's perfect, and I come across another one, I'm like, ooh, shiny.
The developers give you everything that you need in this game to become a warrior as far as the first person shooter is concerned.
I've never played a game where I was afraid of heights and afraid of falling and dying. In Dying Light, when you die, you lose a certain amount of survivor points. You have to build those up again because you want to use those in your skill tree to level up.
They definitely do hold you accountable to all that stuff. You can't just lazily play this game. You have to learn the parkour style, the movement of the game, and you have to adhere to it at all times.
So in the game, there's a day and night cycle. When you bring up your menu, you can see your clock and you can see what time of day it is. In the night cycle, the zombies become more
aggressive.
Definitely more aggressive.
We made the mistake of just thinking that the night would kind of be better because they wouldn't be able to see us. But we were out in the middle of the slums in the middle of the night, and I'm not sure what you did or what I did, or if we fired a gun or something, but it was a big mistake, and we were very careful after that. And I feel like the people that are playing this game that avoid the night cycle, you're missing out on a lot because the developers haven't made it to where you can't play it at night.
It's more of a challenge.
It is more of a challenge.
All your skills are double. Not only are the zombies beefed up, but you are too, and you get double XP for doing that. So there's an incentive to play at night. And there are a few missions where you're forced to do the night cycle.
Throughout this game, we were always like, what time is it?
And you go to find a safe house. Scattered throughout the map of Haran, there are safe zones. It's a place for you to rest through the night, sleep through the night cycle. The safe houses would have been redundant, but you really need them. It is beneficial for you to have them because it's your safe haven. You have a shop in which you can buy and sell and trade things.
There is no fast travel in this game, and so it's really convenient to unlock these safe houses because you have a place to get to.
I would have been a little discouraged if they would have had a fast travel between every safe house or safe
I probably
zone.
would have used it all the time and been
but
bored.
They make you learn Haran, and you learn to recognize places where you are, and you get really good at traversing those areas and parkouring across the rooftops pretty quickly.
Yeah, and also while you're doing all that stuff, you are gaining points and XP. There are benefits to everything. The negative criticism about gameplay was incredibly thick. And to be quite honest, ridiculous. After we played this game, the first time around we read through the reviews, and I'm the type of person that I'll read them, and if I severely disagree, I get mad.
Yeah. Some of the criticism was the combat is hard and difficult to master. Well, no, not really.
I think it's hard and difficult to master
at first
if you don't learn.
People complained about, well, you take so many hits to kill a zombie. In the beginning, maybe.
That was something that
I didn't
was really
that,
interesting to me. That people
it's like
were
they didn't play the whole game.
Well, it's just odd to me that people were complaining that it took too many hits to kill a zombie, or that there was too much gore.
Yeah.
That was another thing.
It's a frickin' zombie game. What the hell did you expect? And a lot of the criticism we read talked about like the poorly designed inventory and crafting system. I didn't really agree with that a whole lot. Yeah, the menu is a lot to take in. You see everything in your inventory.
I am the queen of anti-inventory. When it comes to first-person shooter games or games in general that have an inventory or crafting system, it completely goes over my head, and I kind of have that really just immature attitude. It's just too complicated for me. And usually I ask him about, you know, what should I upgrade, what should I craft, what should I do. I was a little reserved at first. This is probably the first game where I've really gotten like invested in crafting and maintaining an inventory and having control over things. While a lot of people complain about that, I for one, I'm a novice player, I didn't have that problem. They definitely paid a lot of attention to the details as far as like what you can do with the crafting system. All you need to do is read. That's really what it comes down to. Just read. Read and follow the instructions. It's not that big of a deal.
Get used to it, and once you've mastered it, I mean, you're golden. People criticized the parkour system, saying it was a little bit clumsy, and the combat as well.
I actually didn't think I was going to like this game at all because of the parkour element of the game. And I actually said the same thing, which is why we're a little suspicious that some of the reviews maybe didn't play the game long enough or all the way through, which is what you should do when you review a game. But anyway.
I didn't think the combat was repetitive or clumsy or anything. I really enjoyed it. If you slash a zombie's head, the head will come off. Or if you slash at the leg will come off.
They invested a lot of work into creating these details because in real life, if you are killing a zombie and, you know, you have a katana and you go after their legs, it's going to hit their legs. And they're probably still going to be alive, which is another thing about this game. They were still alive. You have to finish them off. I feel like they put a lot of effort into giving the player a lot of freedom and following through with what that freedom means.
At no point did I get bored with the combat because I would look at a horde of zombies after I was leveled up pretty well and I'd be like, awesome, I'll toss my machete or whatever. So, you know, it was fun. The combat was really fun for me. And what they could have done to make it better was at the end when you're fighting Rice, make it an actual battle instead of a quick time event kind of cutscene thing. I wish they would have had a little bit more combat because they make him a hateable character and you want to fight him and you want to see his head get cut off or something. And the last thing, they could have made it better by adding split screen co-op. I can understand because it, you know, drags down frame rate and all that. You know, that would have been an interesting thing. And there's still online co-op. You can play online with your friends on co-op. It would have been more awesome if you could have couch co-op like us. We like to do that.
Yeah, so we just fought over the controller instead.
So in the end, our summary of the game for narrative and gameplay is baller.
And it is the first game that we have ever played as far as like NoteWorth is concerned and considered it baller. The replay value is incredibly high. As soon as we finished it, I started a new game and I actually finished my second game today and I'm tempted to start it again.
Yeah, she's actually going through right now to find
statues. The zombie statues, I'm finding every single one of them.
It's a great game to play. It's definitely worth the buy. Go out and get it. And actually they mentioned that they're releasing an expansion pack to it. So we're excited about that. And they said that the map for the expansion pack is going to be as massive as the 2 maps in the game to begin with.
We do want to make a point to say that we feel like this is a huge improvement from Dead Island.
Oh yeah.
I kind of felt a little odd about Dead Island. I feel like the trailer for Dead Island was a little misleading. Techland, they've been very creative. One day I was looking at the screen or whatever.
The home screen.
And they thank you for buying the game, and they talk about how they really invested in it. And I find that a lot of video game companies are greedy and very unappreciative of gamers, consumers, and the reason why they are even in business. And I feel like Techland does not fall into that category. I feel like they're very humble, very sincere, and they have devoted so much to this game. And I am so excited to see what they have in store in the future.
Yeah, I really hope there's a sequel or just anything. It is a great game, and it's a totally new IP that I want more of.
So that's it for the review, guys. Thank you so much for watching. Don't forget to like and subscribe if you liked it.
Comment about it.
And we hope you find it incredibly helpful.
Or if you want to read the transcribed version, we'll go into a little bit more detail. Check out our website at NoteWorthReview.com, and we'll have it in the link below. Good night.
And good luck.